A very pleasant evening to all of you. Pleasure again to meet all of you on behalf of Collins Learning and, of course, meeting you here through Zoom and through Facebook. So, yet again, another session on social studies, making it alive. We have none other than Ms. Archana Golcha, who's the RP for today. Ms. Golcha has been associated in the field of education for over 2 decades. She is a gold medalist in mass communication and has worked with both print and electronic media. She is a huge advocate of inclusive education as she is a special educator herself. As a teacher, she has twice bagged the award for the best teacher at the prestigious Jain International School at Nagpur. Ms. Golcha has been teaching English and social studies in secondary classes. She has been a resource person for CBSE training programs and is a master trainer as well. She has also been an observer appointed by CBSE for JEE, NEET examinations across the country. Without much ado, ma'am, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for the introduction. And so I think we can begin. The topic for today, like you all know, is that we have to bring social studies live in the classes. And here we're going to focus on the primary class. Earlier, I had done the webinar where we had focused on the middle school. So focusing on the primary is very important because we begin social science in standard 3 and then 4 and 5, and then we move on to the middle school. So welcome all, and I'm really happy that you all have joined me. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have exchanged number of notes, ideas, creativity, and we'll be all enlightened souls. Okay, the first slide here talks about a quotation which is from Sir Benjamin Franklin, which says, "Tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand." Now, educators, if you observe this quotation very closely, you will find that it is somewhere similar to the Bloom's taxonomy, because that also speaks that we should not leave the teaching up to the level of understanding and the level of knowledge. We have to progress to the analytical, to the application, to the evaluation, and to the creativity. So if we talk about from the side of the student is telling the teacher that if you simply tell me, you give me information, you name something, you just are helping me to identify it. But very soon I will forget it. If you show me something, you point out to something, you show me something on a chart paper, you show me through a teaching aid, I will remember it, but again, that will be for a while. That will be for some good number of days. With some clues, I will have to be reminded again. But if you involve me, if you make me do, if you make me, help me, and create that understanding in me that I keep it for life, I use it in my life skills, then we call it as understanding for life. So before we progress to today's webinar, if we understand these 3 lines very well, tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand, the bottom line is that we have to involve the children in whatever we are going to do in the classroom. The teaching learning process has to be very, very interactive, where the small children, let's say in the age group of 8 to 12, have to be completely involved. So let's understand the attention span here. We're talking generally in the age group of 10 to 12 or 9 to 12. Here the attention span is only 20 to 30 minutes for 10-year-olds and 24 to 36 minutes. That is less than a period for 12-year-olds. And we have parents and teachers generally shouting at the children, generally frustrated. We are making the children come to task by bribing them, by pleading to them, so that they are with us, not understanding that the attention span is so less. And it's not just one period which they have to be with you. It's not just your subject that they have to be with you. So how will you hold on to their attention? So the best way is that you need to be more creative. You need to involve children in activity-based experiential learning to improve the attention span. Otherwise, very soon they will be drowsy, they will be unattentive, they will start disturbing the class, and you will lose your cool. So whatever you have planned, whatever you have come prepared in the class with, it will be a mess. And you'll end up simply shouting, pay attention, be with me, focus. But if you recollect to the previous slide, I said, if you involve me, I will remember, I will understand, I'll be with you. So today's challenge ahead. Social studies educators must always be prepared for the road ahead. And what is the road ahead? We have lots and lots of things in hand. We have to prepare ourselves before we enter a classroom. So here I have come up with some around 14, 15 tips, which will help all the educators, my dear good educators who are striving to bring in that extra X factor in the class so that they're able to grab onto the attention of the little children. The first tip here, I hope you all are with me. The first tip here is knowledge. You should have thorough knowledge of your subject chapter. Now, why should you have thorough knowledge of your chapter? Definitely, you know more than your children. You assume that you're going to a class, you're going to have teaching learning experience, and you know more than the children. So whatever you say, the children are bound to accept it. But let me tell you that children will accept only when you are confident and you're able to give them the correct knowledge. Because if you're not well prepared, they'll catch you on your wrong foot. And if they'll ask you questions and you're not prepared to answer, it'll be very insulting. So the first thing first is that have complete knowledge. That means be prepared. When you go to your class, you must know what you are going to do, what is your objective, what are the assignments, what are the class activities, how are the children, what is going to be the learning outcome. You need to chalk out everything when you get inside your class. The tip 2, lesson planning, very important. We do prepare our lessons, but do we do it from our heart? Or are we doing it simply because the school is asking for lesson planning? So we have to scribble and we have to give something. But that something, does it align with what you're going to do in the class? So lesson planning means that you always have to be prepared to the class. Now, how are you prepared? What are the things, what are the tools that need to be in your hand? The first and foremost, definitely your book. If you carry your book with you, the children are also going to bring their book. Now, why should children carry the text? Why is it important? Many times you'll find that there are some desks on which some of the books are missing. So they share it with their friend. They share it with their neighbor. In that case, they assume that since I do not have the book, I'm excused from today's class. No question should be asked to me because I don't have the book. And since I'm not prepared, so I will not ask questions. I will not have anything to mark. I will not have anything to note because I don't have a book. So kindly ensure that you have your book with you and the student also has the book with you. Now, when you have the book, what is required? The word meanings, the flow charts, you have to have your question bank, you have to have the important points underlined, highlighted, maybe with some explanations. You always have to go with the extra information because children know much more than what you think. Because children are having, knowledge at the fingertips. They're not only reading from the book, they're not only reading from the library, they are checking everything from the internet. The Google is very, very easily accessible. So be very well constructively prepared with your lesson plan, and you should be ready for any kind of questions that comes from the side of the children. Third tip, please make your classes very, very interactive and engage your children in learning. It should not be a one-sided story. It should not be a 50 or a 40, as the period depends, 40 minutes of lecture. Lecture is okay for higher classes. But when it comes to the primary or the middle school, we need to involve the children. We need to engage them into lots and lots of activities. So we're going to discuss number of activities today. Now, what can you do to engage them? First, ask them questions. Asking them questions keeps them on their feet. Makes you also understand that, yes, they are listening to you, they are attentive. Talk to them. Talk to them in the sense, you can talk to them related to the subject. You can talk to them how they are feeling. You can talk to them about some references. Share your experiences. There are many times that you're teaching them something and, there's an attachment of your experience. Like once when I was teaching in a class, it was something about the deforestation. And I shared with them an experience where I had, I was a witness into a forest fire in Himachal Pradesh, which had spread something like 11 hours. And it was a very dangerous time. So I shared my experience and I got their attention with that topic, what I was talking about, the deforestation and its effects. Share some stories related to the topic. So like I said, these could be real stories. These could be some, articles from the newspaper. It could be a fiction. It could be anything which could be a fact or a statistics. So this way, you're going to engage your students. Tip 4, use current affairs or use the current knowledge while teaching. See, what you're teaching in the book might have been printed a year back or a couple of years back. If you're using the NCERT book, okay, now the new education policy will have a review, but sometimes we are going on with the different batches, we are going with the same stuff again and again and again. So what happens is even we get bored teaching that. And children want something which is more relevant with the present. And when we are teaching social studies means linking past with the present. So you have to bring in the factor of current affairs. So if you have read something in the newspaper and you find that it is related to the topic that you would be teaching or you are teaching, please cut it out, take the clipping, attach it in your book, and when you will come to that page, you can immediately read it. So what will happen is children will understand, first of all, that my teacher is taking extra effort, extra pains to give me the wee bit more than what is there in the book. So the extra helps a lot. Tip 5 is use of teaching aids. Now you see variety of teaching aids here. You can see some cut and paste gadgets. You can see calculator, globe. You can see some, something, there's a lamp here which may be talking about the day and night that could be experienced in the classroom. There is a palette here of colors. So I think if some of my friends here could add some more things which we could put down other than the chalkboard, modules, globe, maps, models. So could you add some more teaching aids here?
Portrayal of independence heroes like Bose and Gandhi, compass.
Oh, yes.
The first aid suggested is the compass. I'm looking for some answers both on Facebook too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whenever we go to a class, we should have something relevant to the topic. And the children will definitely eye that teaching aid. They want to know what is the teacher going to teach today. Ma'am, what is there in your hand? What is this going to be taught today? What is the model about? What is that chart about? So, that element of suspense and mystery should always be there.
And someone has said visuals.
Okay.
Visuals, videos, PPTs.
PPTs. Great. So we have got a good list of teaching aids. Let's
mind maps, puppets, lot flowing in now.
Great.
Photographs.
Very nice, very nice. So we have got around 10 to 15 more teaching aids added up over here. Great, wonderful. Uh, Create your own library of information. Own library of information means that it's not that only what has been provided to you only have to show that. You only have to discuss that. You need to look out for more relevant, more interesting, more apt videos, pictures. Sometimes you'll find pictures which will compare that present picture with something which is very old. You know, sometimes you'll find, even in the newspapers or you'll find on the internet, how Kolkata looked 100 years back. There'll be a black and white photograph with what Kolkata looks now, how Paris looked so many years back and how it looks now. So even though there's 100 years gap or 150 years gap between the images, but the two images, when they're locked together, they tell you a lot about the story through the pictures. So likewise, when we enter a class, we must, in the smart board, if you have a smart board, I think most schools have smart boards now, you should have your own stuff, which you should keep it in your pen drive, or you should save it on your smart board. So whenever there is a reference, you can say, hey, wait, hold on, I have something to show you, and you can connect. So this connectivity, this inquisitiveness, which you create in the minds of the children is very interesting. So like I said, when you enter a class, always keep things handy. You never know when it may become to use to you. So pictures, videos, very important. Tip number 7. Now we come to the flow charts and the mind maps and what kind of tables we can prepare through the children, because children love to do something, you know. Simply if we're teaching about the culture of a place, let's say the culture of India, we're talking about the culture, the traditions, there are so many things which are linked to it. Now, if we start going one by one, it becomes not only difficult to remember, it becomes a bit monotonous. So we can make like a flow chart. We have put the center. Here we can take any topic. It could be an animal, it could be a bird, it could be a freedom fighter, it could be a famous personality, it could be an architecture, it could be a monument of a place. So you put that at the center, and you know, you can put the various links to that. Like here with culture, it has been written family. So this is being prepared by children. So culture means every family has their own culture. They have their traditions. We have celebration of festivals. These festivals have certain festivals have holidays. They may be a national holiday, it may be a local holiday. People have got jobs which are related to the culture. People follow religion. There are certain foods associated, language. So in one go, in one page, in one pin-up, the child has got so much of stuff to put in the mind. So if you put things like this in a concept map, or in the form of a table which is on the right side, natural resources, so it can be explained in a very easy manner. So here it is like the renewable and the non-renewable. You can put things which can be replaced, things which cannot be replaced. And here, I think we involve children to do these things. We tell children to, it could be an individual activity, it could be a pair, it could be a group, because the children love to scribble. You tell them, you bring crayons, bring sketch pens, bring color pencils. They'll bring up all that stuff and they'll do something very, very creative. So this is one thing which I feel tip 7 is concept maps and tables. Pronunciation. Many times in the process of teaching, especially if we're not teaching English, if we're teaching any other subject, we forget our pronunciation. And many times we don't even bother if we go wrong. We say, so what? I'm not an English teacher. So what? It's only children. Maybe they didn't notice it. So, we need to be very particular, because the children do notice. And when they use those words amongst themselves or with other friends or sister, brother, parents, it could be very embarrassing if the child comes back and tells the teacher, sir, ma'am, this word is pronounced in this manner. So please don't put yourself in an embarrassing situation. If you come to some new terms and you do not know how to spell it correctly, what is the correct intonation, So I think you should refer to the dictionary or what is the best means. So some examples have been given here like democracy, democratic, economy, economics, development, broad. Now, femin could many times be spelled as femine. So, we need to be very careful how we are pronouncing the words correctly. So, could some of the very smart and intelligent educators here come up with some words which children generally, here I'm talking about children, we can correct the children. What kind of spellings do they generally incorrectly pronounce?
Okay, I think Ramya ma'am says education situation.
Hmm. Okay.
That's what she reckons they pronounce incorrectly.
Mhm.
Looking out for more
It could
spelling of parliament,
parliament. Okay.
faro or faro. How do you pronounce that? Then ocean
Faro,
currents,
faro. Okay. Hmm.
ocean currents. Then
Hmm.
government, geography, environment. Very in India we have a different pronunciation. People
Hmm.
call it environment, environment.
Hmm. Hmm.
The river
Even
Mississippi
even the word department is said as department.
and department.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
It becomes a very colloquial word then,
yes,
which part
yes,
of the country it is being
yes.
pronounced. Yeah.
Oven, then a word generally. Then many teachers pronounce the word geography also wrongly.
Hmm.
That's what one man has literally written to suggest that.
Yeah.
Then spelling of government, principles confuse the word with principles.
Hmm. Principal, PAL and PLE.
PLE, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's coming from Facebook. So
So we have to be very careful about our spellings when we are writing or words that we are pronouncing. So please
yes.
don't make errors. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, the next tip is that appreciation. All of us need appreciation. All of us need words of encouragement. So just few words are written here. I think each teacher should have a dictionary, his own dictionary, where lots and lots of words of appreciation are there. I think even if child makes an error, still if you appreciate a child, next time definitely the child is going to speak, generally going to try. But if you discourage the child, if you use words which are negative in nature, which will diffuse the child is not going to be encouraged and will always remember you throughout life for discouraging him. So could I have some more words of appreciation here from my friends? How do you call out your children when they do a task? Something like, wow, what a way to go. You made my day with your answer. Could I have some more inputs, please? Words of appreciation.
Fabulously answered, excellent,
Hmm.
splendid,
Hmm.
bless you,
Bless you.
fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay.
Then on Facebook, what? Kudos,
Huh?
amazing,
Okay.
superb, surreal, way to go, well done, nice.
Hmm. Wonderful.
You
Wonderful.
mastered it. Lots. I think most teachers have practiced all these.
Great
Lovely.
discoveries. Great discoveries today.
Yes.
Uh, when I was in school, I had a geography teacher who used to call all of us by one name, and that one name was monuments. She used to call all of us monuments. Hey, you monuments. And we used to laugh it out, It was much later when I realized that this actually is a very insulting word. And when I asked my father, why is my teacher calling myself and my friends as monuments? So it's when he explained to me that that's not the right way to call you. Monuments means that you're a structure. You are a part of the architecture which is static, which is, you know, which cannot talk, which cannot walk. So you people do not respond to your teacher. So your teacher must be getting angry. That is by calling you a monument. So, after I heard that, I felt very bad. So I hope we do not call any of our children with those words which could be very hurtful. So always try to encourage children. In fact, the more encouraging words we will use will mean a lot to the child. Tip 10. It says, say no to no. What do we mean by say no to no? It says that never say, I will not explain this. That means our role as a teacher does not end with only how we are prepared to speak up. Children also will reverse and come back to you and ask you certain things. And if you are not in the right mood, if you're not well prepared, or if you are not knowing the answer, so what will you say? You will say, I'll explain later, or this is not in the syllabus, or you meet me later, come to me in the break time, and I'll discuss with you, I'll get back to you. So, I hope we don't get into these things, because we should know when we have to say no, but not at a time when the child is curious and asking a question, because you're discouraging the child. The enthusiasm in the child will break and diminish immediately. If you think that this child will come to you in the break and ask you the question again, I'm sure the child will never come back to you. So please do not discourage by saying it's out of syllabus. Let it be out of syllabus. Let it be a question which is just something which the child has heard maybe while coming to school. When he was coming in the bus, he heard some of his Didi Bhaiya speak about it. So it may be nothing relevant to your subject as well. Or it may be of a higher grade, or it may be of a lower grade. But please answer to the curiosity of the child. Tip 11, too much of anything is bad. Keep your explanation very crisp. So, this is the age of knowledge. This is the age of information. This is the age where we have so much of stuff. And when you're going to the class, you're over enthusiastic to come out with everything for the children. But there is a limit to how much we can speak and how much we can explain and how much information we will give. So we should know where to draw the line. When we're talking about primary children have very less attention span, and very soon they are out of the task. You need to break your task into smaller tasks to grab their attention. If you speak long sentences, if you speak sentences which have got nothing relevant to what they know, they have never heard about it before, so your information is very dry. So in that case, it becomes dangerous. I should say it is harmful for the children. So please be very apt. Your interest will be created as long as it is very crisp, but not too elaborate. So we need to, at times we get carried away. We're telling them a story. We start telling about that our own personal experience, and then we go into something else, and half a period is over. And at the end of it, we have not earned anything out of it. Oh, I hope none of us are like this teacher there. Tip 12, be a jolly good fellow. Don't scold all the time. Be patient and love your class. Yes, we need to love our children. Love is the foremost thing. Teaching and everything will come later. Children will be with you, and children will always love you as long as you love your children. So if you scold them frequently, if you snub them frequently, and if you are impatient with them, that means that you're telling them to shut up in a way. So they will not have the courage to ask you questions or even share with you. At times they want to share with you things. Maybe they read something, or they have brought, if you're teaching a particular topic, they come up with something relevant. Like once I was teaching them about, ancient history. So I was saying that you may have something very ancient in your home. Mother may be having some old artifact of copper or some very old stuff. So when child brought, it was a haldi kumkum thing, which was very, very ancient. And it had a very peculiar way of opening it from the top. One screw would open and the whole thing would open like a lotus. Now this child wanted to show to me that this artifact belonging to, I don't know which era, was there with the mother. So this child had brought to show me. And because I was encouraging in the class, the child had the guts to bring it from the bag and open it, unscrew it and show it to me. And it was a very interesting thing. So we need to encourage children to speak up. And if we scold them and snub them all the time, they're not going to be with you. They're not yours, not for long. Yes, children want activity. Children want lots of stuff happening inside the class, outside the class. So we have to organize things like competitions related to your topic. You can have a debate in the class. You can have, okay, one group here and one group here, and this group is for and this group is against. Come on. So a debate is a very exciting thing. Children love role play. Role play could be, in history, role play is very good. Even if you're teaching civics, you can have role play. So, that is one way of engaging them. Group discussion. Group discussion is you throw in, it's like brainstorming. You tell them to come up with their ideas, and the group can discuss, and one person can speak up. It could be that way. Quiz, another way, if you want, you finished with a topic and now you want to revise it. So instead of going with the similar pattern of revision, you can say, okay, today we're going to have a quiz. So children will love a quiz. You can have between the rows, 4 rows in the class. You can have between the girls and the boys. You can have it roll number wise. You can have your pick. You can give names to the groups and you can have a quiz. Mock parliament, the very interesting thing where you can enact and you can help the children to come up with the real points, how a parliament behaves and how do the people in the parliament debate over issues. And field trips, yes, children love field trips, so you must have that in your annual plan. You must have the field trips into the right places at the right time related to your topics, and your picnics could be actually field trips converted into amusement as well. Understand the individual differences. Now here the child is saying, my teacher pointed me with a ruler and said, at the end of this ruler, there's an idiot. I got a detention after asking, which end, teacher? So this is so sad that we need to love children. We don't need to show them the ruler or the stick or our big eyes or our stern face or whatever. We need to involve them, and now from the tips we will move very soon. We will move into the things which how we can involve children and keep them engaged in the class. So please remember that individual differences, children understand differently. So please take them with a lot of patience. Okay, now we have ended with the tips. Tip number 14. Anybody wants to add a tip which could be the tip number 15, which could be very importantly placed here, which I might have missed out. A tip which is required for having a very smart social studies class, a very interactive social studies class.
Flipped classes for SST is a must. That's what Mahek ma'am says. And waiting for others to respond.
Yeah, because the tips, we always meaning to share the tips.
Yes, Srishti ma'am suggests having flowcharts would be good for conducting a class in school. Anything else? Okay, interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach. Map games, project-based learning. Leela ma'am says on Facebook, school exhibitions not only for science but also for social studies will enable the children to learn better. During exhibitions, drama and role play are no doubt will be able to help students gain their confidence in that particular subject. And crosswords, picture of articles, then civics class with the present developments, quizzes, art integrated work, lots of ideas.
Right. Good. We are at the right platform. I think we are with the same wavelength. So now we move into some of the pin-up projects which children love to do. Now these are certain topics which I've picked up from the book, and how it could be presented and how could the children be involved into making it and doing it. So here they are. The first one talks about a family tree. So children love this concept of family tree, where so here how it has been made is that it's a fingerprint, and on those fingerprints you have put the names, the parents' names, the great-grandparents' names. So likewise, you can make children make the family tree. There could be different ways of doing it. It could be leaf printing, it could be vegetable printing, it could be any sort. Here it is the hand printing. On the other side, we have, like if we're teaching, the topic is importance of trees. So how to make it more interesting and how to make it more interactive. So, we tell children through this one tree, we have got number of ideas here. What is the importance of tree? It removes carbon dioxide, reduces erosion, prevents flooding, adds oxygen, cools our homes, provides medicine, provides fruit. So if these kind of pin-up charts can be made by the children and you put it up on the display boards in the classroom, or while you're teaching, you show it to them, you tell them to prepare and come. Maybe on a day you teach them and next day you tell them to come up with a presentation. So this would hardly take them 10 minutes to prepare in the class, and then, they speak it up. So this is like, it could be one group coming up with the importance of trees. Another group would come up with some more importance of trees. We could tell the children to come up. Each group will come up with 5 importance, and that we need to plant trees. So when you have things like, plantation in school during the monsoon, or you're celebrating the Earth Day, or you're having the Heritage Club. So during those times, these kind of activities, it can involve the primary children. Here's another pin-up project which talks about, map symbols. When you're talking about maps, it's a very far off concept for primary children. They don't place themselves, okay, what is a map and what are symbols. So one of the simple way is that in the classroom where they are sitting, you can tell them to prepare a map of their classroom. You can tell them to prepare their own symbols. So if you can see here, children have sketched some symbols of airport, mountain, park, then restaurant, office. So these symbols prepared by them, which are even close to what the theme is, will always remember. They will always remember. So like I was saying, you can tell them to prepare the map of, standard 3, standard 4 can prepare a map of their class. So the important things in the class, they can highlight them to the map. You can tell standard 5 and 6 to prepare the map from the school to their home, or from their home to their best friend's home, with the proper signs and symbols. So this is again a project which children love to do, and it can be done in the classroom. Landforms. This is something which confuses children. Very frequently they forget what is a peninsula, what is an island, what is a plain, what is a mountain, valley. So if the children can sketch it out, rather than you showing, of course, you can show them a video, you can show them an audio visual, the audio visual aid, you can explain it to them. And then you tell them that now you make your own way. So if they sketch it out, color it and label it, they won't forget it. Chances are that they will remember it. So how does a lake look like? How does an ocean look like? How does an island look like? So these are the ways through which we can explain the landforms to the children. Now here again, we have taken some pin-up projects. One talks about the penguin. Here again, you can pick up any bird, any animal. You can pick up a famous personality. You can pick up a revolutionary. You can pick up a person who is an inventor, a person who is into politics. You can pick up a person, any authority whom you are teaching in the past or maybe the present. So what you can do is the center figure. Here we have taken the penguin and who they are. So they are birds, they are smart, they are this, this, this. On the left side, we have put up what do they have. So, the children will write down this is, so that the identity, the characteristics of that animal or bird can be put up. And what they can do is put on the right side. So instead of penguin, we can pick up anything else. We can put the globe, we can put a continent. So we can put at the center, we can put the continent. We can just sketch it out, and then where is it? So we can write about its placement. We can take an ocean. So whatever you feel. So these are the ways of remembering, understanding. It will go to the last point of the Bloom's taxonomy. That is the creativity. Children will remember. They will associate. When you will talk about a penguin, immediately this chart will come in the minds of the children. When they will see videos of penguins, when they will see penguins, they will immediately relate to this because they have sketched it out, they have written the points, And maybe, it can be done in their notebooks. Again, it could be as a project. It could be on the smart boards in your classroom. Now, if you're teaching about the earth, if your topic is we pledge to take care of the earth, now again, there's a fingerprint. On every fingerprint, the child can put up the child's name and they can write one thing against it, what they should do to protect, to save the earth, because we have just one earth, we have just one planet on which life survives. So lots of things are written here, that what we should not waste, how we should recycle, we should reuse, we should not litter, we should pick up trash. So how to make Earth a better place to live. So all those points with a fingerprint and their name, they can write how they can take care of the Earth. So these are some of the ideas you can pick up like this, number of ideas when you're teaching and you're preparing your lesson plan. You must assume that how you have to make your class more interactive and interesting. Another topic here is our government. Now, when we're teaching our government, children find, they start yawning. What have children of the age of 9 and 10 got to do with our government? But still, you have to teach. You have to create the interest in them, and because they are going to teach, they're going to learn up to standard 10 compulsorily about the government, forms of government. So, at that level of primary, how can you teach them about the government? So, you can talk about start with, for a government, first you have to be a good citizen, because from one of these citizens, the government will be formed. And until unless you are not good, you are not the right citizen, how will you be able to vote? So who is a good citizen? So again, they will make this kind of maps and they will make these small clouds, and in that they will write that you have to be responsible, you have to be cooperative. So all these points they can write. So each one can prepare, or you can again have a group activity. So through these ways and means, you can involve children. And at the end, if you have 2, 3 activities like this, your topic of our government will be taught in a very interesting manner. Now, this is one of my favorites, which can be prepared by children. This is supposed to be a dinosaur or a double hump camel, probably. Now, the various landforms are explained through this sketch. And if you observe it, you'll see that the child has drawn an island, lake, a river, a valley, the mountains. The valley is so well explained between the mountains. The mountain peaks have been shown, the bay and the peninsula. So there's a difference between the bay and the peninsula that also children can understand. There's a plain at the bottom, so that is the base. So these kind of sketches, you can involve children and make them do lots of stuff. Now here it is landforms. You can pick up anything else. So any ideas from my colleagues, from my friends, of what other kind of things can we come about where we want to teach a topic like landform through an animal sketch or through a flower or something?
Use dal and cereals to
Yes, yes.
project where it is produced on an India map.
Yes.
That's about the crops.
Hmm.
I think teachers are keying in, so it takes a bit of time.
No problem.
Clay modeling can be used, as what Ms. Trishna says.
Mm-hmm. Some use rangoli colors to decorate and describe the
Various landforms, yes. And okay, Mahak ma'am says she's asked students to make landforms from newspapers and boxes. Paper collage is a wonderful way in which you could help students make landforms. Then with clay, this is reiterated from Facebook again. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we can't hear your audio. No, your audio. Can you speak now? No, no, it's not audible.
Hello.
Yes, yes, now it is.
Okay, so I think headphone is giving some problem.
Okay.
Okay, so here we have come to the mnemonics. Now, children find it difficult sometimes to remember a long terminology or something which is not very easy to remember. So now what should the teacher do? How can the teacher teach the series, the sequence? So here I have given some ideas. Now, when the teacher is teaching about the planets, there's a sequence of the planets, so we cannot change that. So what should the teacher do and how can the teacher make the children learn? So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune could be taught as my very excited mother just served us nachos or noodles, whatever the children love. So if you can teach in this manner, the children will never forget the order of the planets. And there's one here which talks about the various, directions. We're talking about the cardinal directions, the main four cardinal directions, not the intermediate directions, the main four cardinal directions. Now, how should we teach that so that the children don't forget? So it's never eat soggy waffles. And the arrow tells you in which way you have to go. Never is north, and eat is east, and soggy is south, and waffles is west. So if you go there and see in that sequence and you learn it, never eat soggy waffles. So children will not forget the four cardinal directions. So these are two ways of remembering these mnemonics. There's another way. Yes. Now, when you're teaching about the continents, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, North America, South America. Again, for small children, it becomes confusing. Sometimes even the children who are in senior classes, they forget one odd. So how to remember? So again, there's a mnemonic here, eat an apple as a nice snack. So instead of remembering the names of the continents, just remember eat an apple as a nice snack. So you will remember eat is the first letter, that is Europe, and is Asia, apple is A, Africa. So likewise, you can create your own mnemonics. These are just few basic ideas. So teacher can make the children sit, and instead of this, children can make their own mnemonics, which they might not forget. There's one out here which talks about, now if you're teaching about island, the word island itself is giving the clue of remembering it. An island is land with water around it. So children will not forget. If you can teach in this manner certain words, certain terminologies in geography or history or civics, so it is very easy for children to remember an island is land with water around it. So any of my friends with some mnemonics, some interesting mnemonics which we can share right now?
Looking for answers.
Let me know if I'm audible now.
You're very clear, ma'am. So someone says the order of planets is very useful. But I'm still looking for any mnemonics that the teachers have been using in their own classes.
Okay.
Months in the fingers, that's a way to, but I don't know if that is mnemonics with their favorite food and songs or any places.
Yes, songs is another way of remembering
Yes,
it. That's also
yes.
a mnemonic.
Then that's all from, I think, the teachers for now.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, these are some pictorial representations. This is something, if you connect art, if you integrate art with, even previously we have seen like the dinosaur and some landforms and forms of government. If you can integrate art with history or geography, it becomes very interesting. Now, certain words I have taken here like ancient, worm, Sioux. So here, what you can do is you can, create a small description of that word. If the child wants to recollect what is ancient, what is the meaning of ancient, the picture description here itself will tell what it means. And child, because the word ancient is very frequently used in social science. So how do we refer to it? So this is one way of fun pictorial representations. Another way is that certain words like continent, legend, cardinal directions, intermediate directions, equator, latitude, children get confused, longitude, latitude, scale. So if a small representation is drawn by them in the book, they may forget the word, but they will not forget. Like I remember when I was teaching about the longitudes and latitudes. So I used to do this for longitudes, and for latitudes, I used to do this. A simple way of teaching longitudes, which is long, and latitudes, I used to say leta hua, sleeping. So, teacher can find her own ways of explaining. So graphical and pictorial representations are very easy way of remembering, and you can integrate art, because now integration of subjects like the health and physical education and art education, the dramatics is very much mandatory. So this is one way of doing it, which seems pretty interesting. Another interesting thing is that your topic which you are teaching them is about the freedom struggle. Now, how to engage the children into doing something which is, out of the box. So we are finished with the topic, and they have learned the terms, and they are finished with the definitions and all. So you can have a food fair maybe in your class, or it could be an activity of the school as an annual activity for that particular dates. Let's say it could be 15th August. So it could be a food fair, and on that food fair you can have all food stuff which could be of tricolor. You can have the children, maybe you have 3 sections and you're teaching the 3 sections. You can tell the children, okay, so you will bring today in your tiffin all the stuff which will be all of tricolor. So these are some examples of how to make your topics interesting and create interest in children so that they get closer to the themes that you are teaching them. Okay, now I come to, I think, my last slide here, which talks about play is the highest form of research. Now, I want some of my good friends here to research and tell me what we mean by this. Play is the highest form of research, because most of the slides that we have gone through is a playway method of teaching, a creative method of teaching, hands-on method of teaching. So how is this called as the highest form of research? I want lots of inputs quickly, please.
Looking for those inputs. Okay, role play is one suggestion, then intense activities and rapid growth. The more they do it with their own hands, they'll remember that for a very long time, because students are involved in actions.
If you observe the children while they are playing, you'll see that they make errors, they'll break things, they won't be successful each time, but they'll learn patience through the play that they will do. They will learn, motor skills.
Yes, gross and fine. Yes.
Yes, they will also learn how to build confidence, because once they will achieve what they were trying since some time, or another playmate will come and help them. So that becomes a teamwork. So they also learn how to share and care. They'll also learn to be happy, because play always makes children happy. So if you transfer your syllabi into playway method, so that is the highest form of research, because children will come out with their own ways. This is exactly what I mean here. Yes, some of my friends.
Yes, group activities. Then there is one nice. There are quite a few thoughts. In fact, interaction. Playway method allows interaction with others. They will learn to be a social being. Then it also helps students understand the rules and abide by the rules. Then learning by doing, we are the facilitator. by we, I reckon she says teachers learn to accept others' views.
Yeah, it helps in character building. They learn leadership
Yes.
skills.
Own thinking.
Own thinking, yes, definitely. So I think uh, the gist of what we have learned today is that we need to make them do to teach them certain concepts, and it's not rote learning anymore. So when we need to instill in them the best, I think play is the best form of making them do. And if we give them the opportunity to be teachers, we give them the opportunity to be the master blasters, so I'm sure they will do the best in the class. So I close for today, but before I close, I throw open this sometime, I think if I'm permitted to questions and some great interaction with my friends out here.
Yes, ma'am. We've got about 10 minutes for questions. We can take questions.
Yes, so any of my
So
friends?
yes, I'm looking for questions from teachers. So while we wait for, okay, please explain pinup project. I thought I should be asking this question again. Mac ma'am has posted it. So if you could briefly explain what pinup project is.
Pinup project means that it should be right there in front of the children. Whatever they create, whatever you have taught them in a illustrative form, in a mnemonics form, if you it's there in front of them, maybe it's on a board in the class, they'll see it every day and they will recollect it every day. Repetition is the best form of remembering. So pinup means that just let it not be in there some corner, let it not be in a folder, let it not be the project which they have submitted to you and you have kept in some part of your staff room in your desk. So I want that pinup means that a small work in front of the children, repeatedly they see it, by the end of couple of days, they will be masters to remember it. That's the meaning of pinup projects.
And another question, are the pinup projects similar to concept maps?
The pinup projects could be anything. You want it to be a concept map, turn it to be a concept map. So it's up to you. What do you want the children to remember? Remember so that they're able to utilize in their future applications. They will use it in the next class. Maybe they will use it till standard 10. So how do you want them to remember it? Not just a 3D effect. You have taught them, you can do three-dimensional pinups also, and you can put it there. So they will see how the things look, how they shape, how they feel, how they touch, how they smell, how they have different colors. So there, you can use concept maps. Yes, why not?
Okay, I think, Mike ma'am, this should have answered your question. Waiting for more questions.
There could be friends who could share, some of the projects which they have made the children do in the class or outside the classroom, which turned out
So
to be
there
very
is
successful.
one question. Okay, now we're getting a good flow of questions. There's this question from Facebook from Preeti ma'am. She asks, students face problem in remembering states and capitals and locating in maps also in higher classes as well as in primary. So how do you think can we make them remember this easily?
Map work is very important over here. There are some teachers who have prepared songs I have heard for the capital and the state. So you can take the form of songs. You can create songs. You can check on the YouTubes. You'll find number of songs on that, and that comes with the memorizing part. When it comes to the location, children are very poor in map skills, especially in India, very poor, because we haven't made them prepared. We have map skill books, but we hardly make the children use them. So map work is something which we have to make the children do regularly. You teach them something related to map, so they must have the outline map. You tell them to shade, tell them to sketch it out, and tell them to label it, because we simply show them. Nowadays the concept is of using the smart boards. So they're just seeing it on the smart board, but they are not doing it by themselves. There was a time, a couple of years back, where children used to do the map work by themselves, shading it, using different colors to mark the different states and capitals, using those signs and symbols on the map. But nowadays, teachers don't make them do. The easy way is using the smart board. But use a smart board, but also make them do on the map skill book. Have a book of maps and make them do lots of map skill work. And if you will make them, encourage them to do it in the primary classes, they'll love it to do it even in 8th and 9th. Otherwise, they'll run away from them.
Exactly.
And there are marks for it. There
Yes.
are marks on the board for map work and the easy way of scoring full marks.
Yes. I think that has answered ma'am's question. The next question here is from Ramya ma'am on Zoom. What is meant by Skype with historians?
Sorry?
Skype with historians.
Skype?
What is meant by Skype with historians?
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think ma'am is referring to a program perhaps on YouTube. So we'll switch to the next question.
Skype with historians, maybe a topic there.
I think. Okay. The next question is from Padma Priya ma'am. How can we make the students understand the marking of maps?
Understand means, we first of all need to make them understand that each country is different and our country is also very different in itself.
Yes.
Now, when we are making them, the physical map, the political map, the thematic map, when we're teaching them about maps, we need to tell them the difference in them. We need to show them the full size maps and a lot of map work, pointing out. One very interesting thing is that, you can make chits, and in that chits, you can write the name of a country, and you can put the world map right in front of the children. And you can tell them that once you open the chit, you have to go and find the country. Then give them a time limit. So first thing is that the first group has to open the chit, go and find the country. The second group has to find information about that country. So let them open the atlas. So first they have searched into the world map, then they will look into the particular country in the atlas and they have to find information about that. So likewise, the interest has to be created. So please don't take map work only as something which is related to the syllabi only. Map work has to be an integral part of the student and it should start from grade 3. We generally concentrate on these things when the children are in the middle school. So small children we think can't do map work, but at least identification they can do on the world map. Another way is through, through the longitudes and latitudes when they find out the grid. They can find out the location of a country. They can find out the time of a country. That is one more activity which they can do. You can create the 24 time zones and make the children do this activity. So those three, using these things, you can create a lot of interest in map work.
Okay, and this is a question that I've seen asked both on Facebook and also on Zoom. So I think most teachers would be interested in this question. Is memorizing dates in history important, ma'am? Instead, can we give importance to the events and values rather than just the dates? This is a question.
Yes, dates are important. Event also is important. Like you're saying, giving more importance to the event and the people involved in that event, but date itself is important. In the previous webinar that I had done a very good mnemonic on how to remember dates. So important dates have to be remembered. There are shortcuts to it. So if you can look into that webinar, if you have missed it, you will see that how mnemonics can help you in helping the children to remember dates. But there is no escape from dates. But if there are 500 dates, you don't expect all the children to remember all the 500 dates. Pick up the most important and what is relevant to the topic. Only those, not everything.
Okay, I'll stop with 2 questions. The first one is from Facebook and the last one would be from Zoom. So with that, we can close the session. So my first question, which I'm taking from Facebook would be, how can we encourage students to be familiar with current affairs?
Newspaper. Children do not read newspaper. We have to force them to, and they find it so boring. It's all black and white. But if a house has getting 2 to 3 types of newspapers, I congratulate the parents. Because parents also don't watch, they don't read news, they just watch the television. And we all know what kind of stuff is there 24/7 on the news channels. It is not news. That is not news at all. So if you want good stuff, pick up for newspapers like Hindustan Times, Asian Age, Times of India, Indian Express. These newspapers are a mandatory for every home. At least two of the best newspapers if you're looking for English or something which is more regional. And children should be given the habit of reading newspaper because newspaper is not boring. It has got everything in it. And children can pick up with the page which they like. They can pick up the page 3, they can pick up the sports page, they can pick up the editorial. At times, help the children to write small articles. Maybe they can write in, in the on the editorial page. And if a part of their stuff is published, that is the byline could be very exciting for the children. That is one way of encouraging. So if you want current affairs, then definitely it's not the television news, it is the newspaper. So first you start reading it, so children are bound to read the newspaper. Or if you want, you can, take out, if they're small children, you can cut out small clips of some stuff and make like a scrapbook, which is from the newspaper. So, those stuff which could be useful for them and they could always keep it in their mind. But newspaper reading is compulsory. So I hope parents are doing it first.
Yeah, I mean, when we were students, it was a habit to be inculcated by every student. I
And
think
library used to
library.
be one place where
Yes,
children used to go, and we never had to be told to keep silent because we used to read comics and we used to read newspaper. And
yes,
then our library teacher used to ask us questions based on current affairs. What is pick up five headlines of today, and so we had to pick up those five headlines. And what does it talk about the development of the nation, or some pick up five international news, five national news, two local news, two sports news. So these kind of stuff, activities used to happen in the library. But now library, I don't know how active or inactive it is. So we have to, revive the reading.
exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And we, on behalf of Codens, also are receiving a weekly news update in terms of general knowledge. So I think that should be helpful. It's a compilation of what has happened through the week. So that's one thing. And then this is not a question, but this is thought of a suggestion that, ma'am, as you'd asked the teachers to key in. So this is the last thing that I'll read out, and then we can close.
Yes.
So Meenakshi ma'am says maps can be related to stories. Treasure Island maps with clues is an interesting activity for kids. We start it early. Start with a quick quiz every morning based on the newspaper. So these are the two thoughts that Meenakshi ma'am is suggesting.
Yeah, this could be, assembly activity. Every assembly has news reading. So make children in rotation to pick up news and read. Have the board on which the headlines is written. Every child should write that headline on the diary. Let it be written, the thought should be written on the board. So yeah, like I said, pin up. When you pin up things, when it is right in front of you, when it is there, children are bound to read it. Then they will learn the new spellings. They will read the, they will not understand. They will ask you. So lots of things can be learned from one thing.
Exactly. So with that, I think it's time to conclude. First, on behalf of Collins, I would like to thank Archana ma'am for a wonderful session. The session last week set a benchmark, and I think this session is taking it way further. And a wonderful session for all the teachers, whoever loves social and innate geography. Uh, these are wonderful. I mean, the thoughts that she shared on pin-up maps, then mnemonics, etc. These are things that no one forgets. Example, when we were kids, our science teacher did tell me to remember 9 planets. She gave me this interesting mnemonic. That time Pluto was also a planet.
Yeah, yeah.
So my very educated mother just showed us 9 planets. And that is something that I still remember, and I can't bear with Pluto getting out of that. So
Even this word which we use as Vibgyor, it is
yes,
a mnemonic.
yes, yes, yes.
We will never forget the rainbow
We'll never
colors.
forget it. Yes.
Yeah.
So these are interesting ways, and thank you so much for making actually a very interesting subject such as social
Thank
even
you,
more
thank
interesting
you.
with your thoughts.
My pleasure.
And with that, we thank all the teachers from across the country for having attended and having shared all your thoughts. Wonderful thoughts there. And thank you so much, ma'am. Wish you all a happy week ahead.
Thank you, Collins Learning, and thanks for the lovely listeners and participants. Thanks for your ideas. Have a great evening and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Stay safe all. Thank you.